Hello, and welcome to another episode in Sirva's newly launched speaker series entitled Mobilizing Diversity Client Conversations. I am Stephanie Captain, Director of Marketing and Affinity Services here at Sirva. We're so excited that you've decided to join us for the dynamic conversation that we have lined up for you today. Our goal with this series is to partner with our clients in these mini sessions as we share open and honest dialogue and best practices on how they're not only addressing, but also making an impact in the area of diversity, equity, and inclusion as it relates to mobility. To say that this year has been anything short of extraordinary would be an understatement in many ways. We are living through changes and challenges that many have not seen in this lifetime, and this will ultimately shape our history. These shifts are making us consciously aware of just how many areas of diversity, equity, and inclusion have gone unnoticed. For organizations around the world, this year is really igniting a spark and setting off an opportunity for reinvention, particularly for those of us in the mobility and talent management space. We have an opportunity to start new initiatives, expand our existing ones, or completely reinvent the way we serve our people, service our clients, and grow our business. In that same respect, many organizations have started examining the inequalities that exist with their talent, whether it's within the workplace or within their own communities. We are keenly aware of just how creative and innovative we're going to have to be in the future to enhance our employee benefits and really support our teams as they work to navigate what work-life balance now means. To move the needle, a lot of us right now are really choosing progress over perfection and pivoting along the way. With that, I am very honored to introduce Sirva's own vibrant Vice President of Global Account Management, Susan McCallion, who will lead this brief discussion with our very esteemed special guest, who's a champion for workplace equality and a wearer of many hats, Samanntha DuBridge. Samantha is Vice President of Global Benefits, Culture, Employee Experience, HR Mergers and Acquisitions, and Mobility for Hewlett-Packard Enterprise. With that, we are truly looking forward to hearing what these ladies have to say. And with that, I will turn it over to you, Susan.
Great, thanks, Stephanie. Samantha, first off, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to chat with us. So if we could start, can you tell me a little bit, or us, a little bit about yourself and your journey to get to be in benefits and mobility at HPE? Oh, I think you're muted.
Sorry, I was on mute earlier.
There we go. Thanks, Samantha. Could you hear me okay?
I could, yeah.
Perfect. Okay.
So I was just saying, I actually started off getting a master's degree in healthcare administration and worked for several years in healthcare and then in a pharmaceutical industry before transitioning into HR and focusing on benefits. And I focused exclusively on benefits for several years and then started expanding into a few other areas like culture, the M&A work that I have today, and certainly employee mobility.
Perfect. And how long have you been with HPE?
I am coming up on 20 years.
Wow, congratulations.
Yeah, what's great about Hewlett-Packard Enterprise is we certainly have a lot of great new hires, but we also sort of engender a loyalty and the love of the company, and we have a lot of people that have stayed for many, many years.
That's great. Great to hear. So as you know, as Stephanie had talked about, the webinar series really focuses on diversity, equity, and inclusion. Can you talk to us specifically about Work That Fits Your Life, the program that at HPE is implemented, and how it actually came to be?
Sure. The impetus of Work That Fits Your Life was really as we started to evaluate what were some of the areas that we felt society was sort of struggling with, and it was really playing out with our own team members. The opportunity to, be at home with children right after you've either adopted or given birth, or added someone new to your family. Transitioning back to work at various points, or even transitioning into retirement. And so as we started to look at those different components, we came up with the sort of a suite of programs that we introduced, and we put it under this umbrella of Work That Fits Your Life, because we wanted to articulate that there was opportunities for people to further explore when and how work sort of fit in with other things that might be happening in their life in terms of major milestones.
That's great. Good. Okay.
Yeah, and then the program itself really had a few specific components to it to sort of address those needs. So we had a piece around parental leave, and that was for moms and dads. And so HPE team members can now take 6 months of paid time after the birth or adoption of a child. And then we added some additional flexibility in terms of our part-time employee status, so that team members could come back to work part-time for a couple of years while their children were young before they transitioned into full-time, if that was their desire. And then we also looked at a unique program, a returnship program. And what I thought was really exciting about that was it was a way for us to allow people who had maybe taken extended periods of time away from the workforce to care for children, to care for an aging parent, to do other life experiences. And now they're trying to transition back into the workforce and maybe feeling like they need a little more support than typical onboarding in order to make that transition. So we did a career reboot program. And then the final piece of the program was something we called Wellness Fridays, which was an opportunity for all of our team members globally to take one Friday a month in the afternoon and sort of have that additional extra time to focus on their own wellness. And particularly with COVID, I think that's been a really important feature for people.
Absolutely. Have most of these happened since 2019? These programs been put in place, and if so, could you talk a little bit about previous programs that HPE had put in place?
Sure. Work That Fits Your Life was introduced in 2019, but we've had a long history of offering innovative programs, the wellness programs, mental health programs, physical fitness, things like that, financial wellness, have all been in place for well over 10 years, and we just continue to refine and grow in that category. And then we've also done quite a bit of work in the diversity and inclusion space as we think about our benefits program and what we offer. And so we want to make sure that we're really considering all the different employees that we might have over time and what their needs might be for themselves and their loved ones. And so even just as far back as when I started, we already had things around domestic partner coverage and things like that. So HPE has been fairly progressive for a long period of time. And Work That Fits Your Life was just another iteration of trying to think about what would be most important for our team members going forward.
That's perfect. Perfect. Do you, does HPE have a dedicated DE&I resource department?
We do. We've got a group that's led by Michael Lopez, and that team has been doing an amazing job, particularly over this last year with some of the additional challenges that we've seen in the US, especially, and trying to ensure that we've got, listening sessions for team members, that we're really responding to all the things that might be happening in that space.
That's great. Yeah. And how does that department, Samantha, liaise with talent mobility? How do they work together?
So they're actually part of the talent management team. So they report in through our chief talent officer. And then my team that has the mobility responsibility partners with them, again, on the benefits piece, on culture. Culture is a really key component as well. And then also on what we offer in the mobility space.
Great, great. And I know Stephanie had talked about these times being so bizarre with the pandemic and COVID. Can you tell us a little bit more about what HPE has put in place to support employees in the pandemic, during this pandemic time?
Sure. I think we've been fortunate in that we had quite a bit of focus on mental health over the last few years in particular. So we had a good foundation to build from, but we really have doubled down in that space over the last year. So we've done a lot to ensure that as much as we can, we're eliminating the stigma that might exist, that we've got our people leaders and managers trained on how to help support and what resources are available to team members that might need that additional support through either the benefits program or just from their other team members. We've put in place, things like free access to the Headspace app. We've made sure team members know about the employee assistance program. We put in place a 24-hour hotline where people could call and just get information about COVID. Especially in the early stages of the pandemic, there was so much misinformation. It was really hard to understand what was true, and where we had certain countries that were, in an earlier phase of the pandemic than the U.S., we were struggling to make sure that everybody sort of had the right information that fit within what was happening in their country. And so we landed on having this way for people to interact with clinicians and to get that kind of information. So trying to look at it from a few different lenses. And then over time, we've built in additional things, like we've had special programs and services for parents, for caregivers, for people that are living alone. That's another challenge. And then certainly for people that, as much as we limited the mobility component during this time frame, we did have some people that were in the middle of moves, or we had people that were new within a specific country and they weren't at home, and that it was a scary time anyway, and adding on top of it the pandemic. So we put some additional features in place for them in terms of outreaches and engagement. So those have all been sort of important features for us, and we've been building over time different things as we've sort of all made our journey through the pandemic.
It certainly sounds like you and the team and HPE put a lot of thought and care and comfort into this. So it's great that great to hear that. So thanks for sharing. One of the hardest questions, I think, is how do you measure success of your diversity program, or even of all that you've put in place for COVID? How do you measure that?
It's it can be challenging because there's a piece of diversity and inclusion that to me is similar to culture, in that it's about how people feel. So yes, we're tracking numbers and we have certain metrics that we look at, but it's also understanding what our team members are feeling about the experience, what they experience in their local communities, and what they experience as employees at HPE. So as I mentioned earlier, that listening component is really important. So we make sure that we're actively having conversations and making sure that we understand where our team members are at. We also looked at, some additional statistics and features that I think probably most HR departments look at in terms of how are we ensuring that we've provided enough opportunities for everyone to sort of understand how to thrive and grow at the company. We've thought about, the recruiting process, our job descriptions, our candidate slates and how we look at, who's interviewing people, things like that. So we put a lot of what I'd say more foundational components into place and then revisited them over time, because some of these pieces do change over time, and we want to make sure that we're sort of keeping up with all of that.
Perfect. So I think as I wrap, one of my last questions is, what advice would you give to anyone listening to the webinar who's just starting to shape and form, a more equitable and diverse talent management program? What would be your advice to them just starting out?
So I probably would start the way that this webcast started, around acknowledging that it's a journey, that it's not about perfection, and that you really need to take time and set aside some focused areas to listen, to learn, to explore, maybe with other people in the industry, more about what they're doing and has been successful. Think about how it fits into your own culture and sort of what makes sense in terms of how you start to address that journey. I think transparency is incredibly important as well. Everyone understanding where you're trying to go and what it really means for the whole community of team members that you have. So I think those are a couple of key pieces. And then I think the other component would be, for us, we're fortunate we have an experienced I&D team. We have senior leaders that are very supportive, and we have champions within the company that are very focused. And I think having some of those talents within your organization can be really helpful, ensuring that you're succeeding, and that as you're going through your journey, you're sort of stepping through it in a way that's thoughtful and considerate of everyone. So I'd say those are some important pieces. The only other thing I'd add for me is that on anything that I'm working on, part of what I love about being in a human resource function is I find that other people within human resources, whether it's benefits or culture, I&D, other topics, people are pretty open with talking and sharing and wanting to sort of figure things out and then learn from each other. So taking advantage of the communities that you have based on the role that you're in. For me, it's been great. Sirva's a great resource as well in terms of the mobility piece and programs like this, so that we can learn from each other. And I think that's another piece that can be really helpful for people as they're starting to think through what makes sense for them, because the journey won't be the same for every company.
Perfect. All right. Thank you so much. I know I truly know how busy you are, and it is such an important topic to us as well as to HPE. So I really do thank you for taking the time to speak with us today.
Thank you, Susan. Appreciate it.
Nope, Stephanie, I think you're on mute.
Thanks so much, ladies. That was a fantastic conversation. And on behalf of all of us here at Sirva, I just want to say thank you again, Samantha, to you as well as to the entire HPE family for participating in this discussion. At Sirva, we really aim to show our true commitment to our clients and partner in as many ways that we can. So these types of collaborations are so important to us as we go through this journey ourselves and really work to find new and exciting ways to improve our own DE&I opportunities. So we appreciate it. And with that, we all know that these types of things are important to be shared. What works for one organization may not work for another, but it's most important that everyone is doing their part to really move the needle and make an impact where they can. With that, we hope that everyone has enjoyed today's conversation and that you'll check back with us again for another part of our series. Thank you.